I'm going to do a quick landscape painting today from a reference photo that I actually took it out of the passenger window of the car whilst on the way up to Norfolk recently. And you can see there's not a huge amount going on, but I quite like that. It gives me the opportunity to add to it and to turn it into a painting rather than having all the information there to start with. So I'm going to just do a quick pencil drawing and just put down the main points really. So I'm just going to very lightly put the horizon in, and then the outline of the river. It's the River Great Ouse, which runs through the Cambridgeshire Fens and makes its way up to Norfolk. And it's a nice little spot. I often see it out of the window of the car and think it would make a nice painting, but never really get the opportunity to stop there. It's on quite a busy road. And so I've just brought down the shape of the river, and I want a tree there, roughly there, and then the reflection of that. And then there's a larger tree just on the left there. I've brought those a little bit closer together just to make a bit of a composition out of it. And there isn't really a tree on the right there, but I think it needs something on the right hand side just for a bit of balance, so I'll just add another tree. And that's basically it for the drawing. Keep it very simple. And I'm just going to wet the sort of sky area. And it's a very kind of overcast day. It was raining on and off the whole way up there. And I'm just going to use this size 10 sable brush. And just use some of the grey that's in the palette there already. And I'll add a touch of blue to that. And just put in a very simple sky. Now I've put that grey in, and I'm just touching it with some clean water just to help it to move around a bit. And I'll grab a bit more cobalt blue. And I'll just put that straight in. I'm going to just leave a few kind of areas of white of the paper behind, just for a little bit of a light source. And then back into that grey again. And same again, just touch it again with some clean water. And allow it all to blend together. And I want a little bit of warmth in the sky, so just some raw sienna there as it goes down towards the horizon. Again, just touching it with some clean water, just to soften everything off. Don't want any hard edges in the sky. And while I've got that blue-grey colour there, I'll just put in a reflection of the sky in the water area. And again, soften it all off, taking care to leave a couple of white areas. And I'll just put just a slightly darker cloud in the sky. And just bring that straight across. I'm not really following the reference photo for the sky as such, just trying to get a sense of the atmosphere. Now I'm just going to allow that to dry off just on its own, just for a couple of minutes. And it's been about 2 or 3 minutes. The paper's still slightly damp, so I'll just put in the distant tree line there. Just basically like a broken line. with a few raised areas just to suggest some distant trees. And I'll add some raw sienna into the mix there and just bring that across. Keep it very sort of cool and muted in the distance, just to help with the recession. And a touch more raw sienna into that, and just bring it down, getting sort of progressively darker and slightly warmer as we come down towards the midground. I'll just switch to a slightly larger brush. And some more cobalt blue and raw sienna, kind of like a dirty olive green. And leaving a few areas unpainted as well, that should act to just add a sense of light. And that's the top bank of the river there. Even more raw sienna. And just outlining the banks of the river now. I'll just put a touch of Viridian in. And mix that with some raw sienna. And a touch of burnt sienna as well. Like I said before, it's quite nice working from a reference photo where you haven't really got a huge amount of information, or it's not the nicest photo. I always find if you work from a beautiful photo, it's very difficult to do it justice in a way. So kind of like to work from a photo where it's not really the best and there's not a huge amount of information. It gives you a lot of scope to kind of add your own artistic flair. And now just ever so slightly darken it off in the foreground. Should help to give a sense of distance. And so it's even more Viridian, burnt sienna and raw sienna all mixed together. And I'll just put in the trees. And this is kind of like a first wash for the trees, so that should act as kind of like the lighter areas. And then once it's dry, I'll go over with some darker paint and just add some shadows, and it hopefully will help them look a little bit more 3D. And just add a few shadow areas whilst I go. Okay, that's the first wash done, so I'll allow that to dry fully. Right, that's completely dry now, so I'm just going to mix up some darker paint. And that's just some burnt sienna with some blue. And I'll go back over the trees. And just using the side of the brush and leaving behind some of that previous wash. And essentially just strengthen them and add the shadow. I think the light's coming from behind, so they're darker on the side facing us. And again, even more blue and burnt sienna. And same again, just side of the brush. And just put in the suggestion of a trunk there. And touch more burnt sienna and blue again. And just very simply put in that larger tree. And mix up some even darker paint. And just make that larger tree just ever so slightly darker than the rest. I'll just darken the base of all those trees and just add a touch of shadow. And then just very simply darken the banks. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the reflections, so I'll just grab the larger brush again and I'll re-wet the water area just with some cleanish water. I'll just mix up even more dark paint, blue and burnt sienna again. And I'll paint the reflections just by reinforcing the bank, but then touching some of the wet area in the water and just allowing it just to run down. And it kind of almost gives like an instant reflection. And then just bring some of that paint up over the banks, kind of using like a semi-dry brush technique. I mean, working very kind of fast and loose for this is essentially it's just a sketch. And I'll just put in the reflection of that tree there, just with some slightly bluer grey paint, and just allow that to run down and soften. There weren't really any reflections in the reference photo, but I always think if you're painting water, it's nice to add a reflection. Just makes it look more wet, I suppose. And I'll just add just a few fence posts. Again, they're not really in the reference photo, but just gives something to basically an opportunity to add a reflection again. So back into that reflection colour, and then just very simply bring that down. Again, just makes the water kind of look more wet, I suppose. I think that's pretty much finished, but the large tree there looks a little bit too dark. So I'll just grab a plastic card and just scratch a few trunks and branches into that just to lighten it off slightly. And that's the finished painting. But just to recap, it's working from a reference photo, very basic photo that I took out of the window of the car. And so I had to use a little bit of imagination just to kind of bring it all together. I think on reflection, if I did it again, I'd probably vary the colour in the banks a little bit more, maybe get a bit of red or brown in there just for a little bit more interest. But as a demo and a sketch, it's quite a nice exercise. Well, I hope you liked the video. If you did, please subscribe and give it a like and all that kind of stuff. And if you've got any comments or any questions, let me know. You can follow me over on Patreon, and I've also got a YouTube membership here, so follow me on there and you get all my videos early, and there's some exclusive members only stuff, so hope to see you there. I'll be back again next week with another video. So until then, have a good week, happy painting, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.